Oh boy, this comic. I've wanted to talk about this on a whole ever since its premiere. And that comic is, of course, Godzilla in Hell. Ever since its announcement that this whole comic book series of Godzilla is going to hell, he's going to fight the devil, and all these other demons and shit, and all these different artists are going to be on here. It's going to be amazing, and trust me, it is. Now, but I should warn you right out the gate that if you're going to get this comic, keep in mind IDW trades are pretty pricey. So first off, know what you're getting into. Absolutely know what you're getting into. While it's a good comic and it's an interesting Godzilla story, it's pretty trippy, and there's hardly little to no dialogue. And yeah, the only dialogue comes from Mothra angels and some dialogue pieces here, like word boxes here and there. There's no main character. The main character is Godzilla trekking his way through hell and trying to discover why he's there in the first place until eventually finding his way to the devil. So that's kind of the big thing right there. Now, like I said, this comic book is done by several artists. The first issue is done by James Stokoe, and then issue 2 is done by Steve Englehart. No, not Englehart. It's, oh God, I can't remember his name. Bob Angleton. That's it, Bob Angleton. Which that artwork is just beautiful. All the artwork's pretty good. The third issue is something to be lacking, but outside of issue 3, at least me personally, I didn't care much for the third issue's artwork. But yeah, the idea of this comic is nothing short of just really interesting. Were they just sitting around? Was the IDW staff sitting around and just thinking like, you know, it'd be cool. Let's have Godzilla go to hell. That'll be fun. So yeah, the story is pretty basic. It's Godzilla trekking his way through hell, and it's done through different artists. The thing is that this is a 5-issue miniseries, and you have to kind of piece together the story yourself. So throughout the story, we follow Godzilla, and there's some really cool ideas because each artist brings out different imagery and different forms. It's not just Godzilla facing off with different demons. He's also facing off against demonic versions of his opponents, which I think is really cool. The second issue definitely deals with this because we see demonic versions of Rodan and Geras and even Varan. Which Godzilla's never fought Varan, so I was like, okay, I can dig this. The big thing with this comic, and I don't know, maybe I just didn't get it myself. Yeah, maybe I just didn't understand, and maybe someone can clear this up for me. But me personally, in the second issue, they say that King Ghidorah was the one who sent Godzilla to hell. But then in the third issue, you see Godzilla and Space Godzilla fighting in Rio, and then you see Godzilla die, quote unquote, getting sent to hell from there. So is it, an illusion? Or was it something else? I don't know, because that's really confusing. Like, one minute you said it was King Ghidorah's fault that Godzilla was sent to hell, and then you just went around and said, no, it was Space Godzilla's fault. I don't know, maybe I just didn't get it. Yeah, that's going to be a little confusing for some people. But with this comic, the artwork's just beautiful. Again, third issue may be something lacking, especially with the other four issues out of this, but James Stokoe doing issue 1 was amazing. There's brilliant imagery, but I feel like some ideas were a little lacking. Like, the first issue right out the gate is Godzilla taking on, like, a swarm of all the victims he's killed, of all the human victims he's killed in his lifetime. And that's a really cool idea. Godzilla encountering all the faceless people he's murdered, whether intentionally or unintentionally through his rampage and fights. That's a really cool idea. Doing it right out the gate, I'd have been cool with, but it's not really a big focus, honestly. It's not really... I feel like this should have been used at, like, the final part. Like, that should have been, not just the devil himself, but also Godzilla facing off with these hordes of people who he's killed, both intentionally and unintentionally. And I feel like that should have been, like, saved for later rather than right out the gate, now that I think about it. And it's not really a big thing either, because they just blow past that real quick. There are a few other things in here of like Godzilla going through and Bob Angleton. His issue is beautiful. His artwork is just fantastic. There's some just beautiful imagery. It's really hard to say like out of the first 2 issues that their artwork is just fantastic. Issue 3 is a little confusing. again, with the Space Godzilla stuff, and also we have the Mothra Angels, which are on Godzilla and against Godzilla's side, which is... That whole issue is just kind of perplexing to me. Then with issue 4, which I think is the best, I personally love issue 4 the most, because in that issue, Godzilla is... And they always keep changing Godzilla's look throughout the comic. And in this one, it's the GMK Godzilla. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Godzilla GMK. Mostly, I'm not a big fan of it. If you like it, that's totally fine, and I can understand why people like it. But the GMK, I love... Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the GMK movie, I am, however, a fan of the GMK, of the Godzilla design in that film. It just looks amazing. And the fact they were using this in a story where Godzilla has to fight his two most dangerous enemies, Destroy and King Ghidorah, for, like, an infinity loop, it's pretty awesome. It's actually kind of like, Hellbent. It's like the Doctor Who episode Hellbent. And it does feel like that, honestly. Because in the story, in this issue, Godzilla has to break through a wall that is keeping him from the final layer of hell. And in it, he has to also constantly battle Destroy and King Ghidorah. And every time he goes at the wall, they keep killing him, and he keeps coming back again and again and again. And it's this continuous circle, and it's hinted at that Godzilla has been doing this for over several centuries. So Godzilla's been killing, literally dying and being reborn over and over again until he uses his brain. And that's the other thing, is that that it shows Godzilla using his intellect in combat, and I really like that. The final issue is pretty interesting, and it's going to be kind of polarizing to some people, because the final issue isn't like this big throwdown with, Godzilla encounters what I guess is Lucifer, this huge Cthulhu-looking thing, which I'm betting that was on purpose. But yeah, Godzilla's trying to get up the mountain, and he can't, and then, the devil's just kind of like, ha ha ha, pussy. And eventually, Godzilla has to let himself be devoured by all these hellspawns, and then becomes a hellspawn Godzilla, and finds... I don't want to... there's a beautiful quote from Buddha, from Buddha, that's used perfectly in this comic, and I kind of spoiled it already, but yeah, Godzilla gets out of hell, and I love the expression of Satan when Godzilla lets himself be devoured by all those hellspawns, and Satan has this look of, wait, you weren't supposed to do that. Yeah. All in all, this is a beautiful piece of artwork, and that's kind of the big thing, is that it's an art book with a storyline. That is the best way to describe Godzilla in Hell, is that it's literally an art piece with a story behind it. If you're looking for big complex dialogue or great story development, I'm not, I wouldn't suggest this, because if you're just looking, there's going to be some beautiful imagery in here, but some people are going to think, I paid too much for a picture book. And some people may like that, there's beautiful imagery and the story's pretty cool, and seeing Godzilla, go through literally through the one place some people have pretty much thought, yeah, maybe Godzilla should attack here, or, that one place we all dread going in the afterlife. I think it's a really cool idea. And, yeah, if you're a Godzilla fan, I highly recommend it, but go into this comic with an open mind. Because, again, there's no dialogue, the story's pretty simple, but the artwork is just beautiful, and trust me, you'll love it on that alone. If you don't want to spend $20 on this book alone, I would recommend maybe getting the separate issues cheaper online, or finding them at a comic book shop and reading the issues separately, rather than get the huge $20 trade. Then you'll feel like you haven't lost as much money. But that's just me personally. So you guys tell me, what did you guys think of Godzilla in Hell? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Just comment below, let me know, and once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm out.